I stood by the tall glass window of my apartment, New York's skyline glittering against the night like a crown of diamonds. To anyone looking in, I was the picture of composure, silk blouse perfectly tucked into tailored slacks, hair falling in soft waves over my shoulders, a glass of Cabernet poised elegantly in my hand. But beneath that calm surface, my heart carried scars no one could see. My phone buzzed on the marble counter, its vibration sharp against the quiet hum of the city. I glanced at the screen and froze. It was an invitation. Emily and Nathan's engagement party. My sister's name, written in elegant script across cream-colored paper. A bitter laugh escaped me. Emily, the same sister who once faked Rehab records under my name, shattering my engagement and reputation in a single cruel stroke, was now throwing herself a lavish celebration. And she had the audacity to invite me. I traced the rim of my wine glass, my mind racing back to the years I'd spent piecing myself together after her betrayal. The irony wasn't lost on me. She had destroyed my future to secure her own. And now, fate had dropped an invitation into my hands, a chance to confront the very lie that had nearly broken me. My reflection in the glass caught my eye. Calm, steady, unflinching. This time, the story wouldn't end the way Emily planned. 3 years earlier, I was a very different woman. Back then, I was 26, hopelessly in love, and weeks away from marrying the man I believed was my forever, Michael Carter. He was kind, steady, with the kind of smile that made me believe in safety. My world felt warm, almost untouchable, until the day everything collapsed. It started with a manila envelope. Michael showed up at my apartment, face pale, hands shaking as he held it out to me. "Claire, what is this?" His voice cracked, and in that moment, my stomach sank. Inside were Rehab records. My name typed neatly across the top, followed by words that sliced through me like a blade. Substance abuse, relapse, mandatory treatment. Lies, every last line. I remember staring at Michael, the blood draining from my face. "This isn't mine. I've never." My words stumbled out, frantic, but his eyes had already changed. Doubt flickered there, followed by hurt. Emily. My sister. The thought struck me like lightning. She'd always been the golden child, our parents' pride, the center of every room. But jealousy is a quiet, vicious thing, and she'd made no secret of her disdain for my engagement. That night, the fight between Michael and me shook my apartment walls. I begged him to believe me, tears running hot and relentless, but the paper sat heavy in his lap. "Claire, if this is true, I can't," his voice broke. And then he left. I didn't sleep. My hands shook, my chest tight, and for the first time in my life, I felt the sting of being utterly powerless. A week later, my grandmother, Evelyn, pressed something into my palm. A silver locket, worn but strong. "Strength doesn't come from what others give you, darling," she whispered, her eyes steady on mine. "It comes from what they can't take away." I wore that locket the day I packed my bags and walked away from everything, my broken engagement, my family's silence, Emily's smug triumph. I left not knowing where I was going, only certain of one thing: I would not let my sister's lie define me. It was the first step toward a life I had to build on my own. Starting over was brutal. I landed in Boston with 2 suitcases, a few $1,000s in savings, and a heart that felt like it had been ripped in half. For months, I lived in a cramped studio apartment that smelled faintly of old paint and takeout. I worked days as a receptionist at a law firm and nights waiting tables just to keep the lights on. There were evenings when I collapsed on the couch with blistered feet, staring at the ceiling and wondering if Emily was laughing at me somewhere, sipping champagne while I scraped by. Those thoughts stung, but they also fueled me. If she wanted me to be the family's failure, I was determined to rewrite the script. One turning point came the night I stayed late at the law firm, filing documents long after everyone had gone home. The senior partner, Victoria Hale, walked past my desk, surprised to see me still there. She paused, glanced at my organized piles, then asked a question that would change everything. "Have you ever considered business consulting?" I laughed nervously, certain she was joking. But she wasn't. She saw potential in my meticulous nature, my ability to juggle chaos and still bring order. She offered to mentor me, and for the first time since losing Michael, I felt a spark of hope. The next 2 years were a blur of long nights, online classes, and shadowing Victoria in high-stakes meetings. I battled self-doubt constantly, my voice trembling in presentations, my hands icy cold before pitches. But each time I pushed through, something inside me grew stronger. My first small win came when I helped a struggling startup streamline their operations. The CEO shook my hand, gratitude shining in his eyes, and wrote a check that covered 3 months' rent. I remember clutching it to my chest in disbelief, whispering, "This is the start." From there, one client became 3, 3 became 10. Word spread quietly, and soon I had enough business to leave the law firm and launch my own consultancy. I named it Silverline Strategies, a nod to the locket around my neck and the belief that even the darkest clouds held a sliver of light. Still, I kept my success close to the chest. On social media, I posted nothing more than vague coffee shop photos or the occasional sunset. My family thought I was barely getting by. Emily once texted, "Hope you're okay out there," the smug undertone clear between the lines. I never corrected her, because I didn't want them to know.
Not yet.
I wanted to build something undeniable, something so solid that no forged document, no whispered lie, could ever destroy me again. By the time I turned 30, Silverline Strategies had grown into a firm with a sleek downtown office, a small but fierce team, and a roster of clients that included names my family would recognize instantly. I'd gone from being the discarded sister to a woman who signed contracts worth more than Emily's annual salary. And all the while, I wore my grandmother's locket, a quiet reminder that strength built in silence was the kind no one could take away. The night of Emily's engagement party arrived draped in extravagance. The venue was a ballroom in Manhattan, dripping with chandeliers that cast a golden glow over polished marble floors. Waiters floated by with trays of champagne flutes, and a string quartet played soft music in the corner. Every detail screamed wealth and perfection, exactly the kind of scene Emily lived for. I entered alone, my heels clicking against the marble as heads turned. The whispers began almost instantly. I could feel their eyes on me, scanning from the sleek black gown hugging my figure to the quiet confidence in my stride. I wasn't the broken woman they remembered. Emily spotted me across the room. For a split second, I saw the flicker of panic in her eyes before she plastered on a smile and glided toward me, Nathan, her unsuspecting fiancé, at her side. "Claire," she purred, air-kissing the air beside my cheek. "I didn't think you'd come." "I almost didn't," I replied evenly, my voice calm but laced with steel. But then I thought, why should I miss such a memorable occasion? Her smile faltered just slightly. The evening unfolded in a blur of polite conversations and brittle laughter. I waited, patient, letting the anticipation build. Finally, when the toast began, I knew it was time. Emily's maid of honor had just finished gushing about their perfect love story when I stepped forward, glass in hand. "If I may," I said, my voice carrying effortlessly through the room. Dozens of eyes turned toward me. Emily's hand tightened on her champagne flute, her knuckles white. "I'd like to propose a toast. To truth." I let the word hang in the air, sharp and deliberate. Because without truth, love is built on lies. And lies, I paused, locking eyes with my sister, have a way of catching up with us. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Nathan frowned, glancing between us. Emily shifted uncomfortably. I reached into my clutch and pulled out a folder. My fingers didn't tremble as I opened it. 3 years ago, my engagement was destroyed. My fiancé received rehab records with my name on them, records that claimed I was an addict, a liar, someone unworthy of trust. Tonight, I want everyone here to know the truth. Those records were forged. Gasps filled the room. Emily's face drained of color. And they were forged, I continued, my gaze never leaving hers, by the very woman we're here to celebrate tonight. The room froze. Nathan stepped back slightly, his eyes widening as he looked at Emily. "Emily?" Is that true? She stammered, her voice cracking. That's ridiculous. She's jealous. Jealous. I cut in, my tone razor-sharp but steady.
No, Emily.
Not anymore. I straightened my shoulders. While you were busy tearing me down, I was busy building something real. I own Silvaline Strategies, one of the fastest-growing consulting firms in Boston. We manage accounts your company would beg to land. My office is filled with people who respect me, not because of a last name, but because of what I've earned. The room buzzed with disbelief. I let them take in the picture. The once broken sister now standing tall, wealthy, powerful, and unshaken. Nathan's face hardened as he looked at Emily. Tell me it isn't true. But Emily had no words. I lowered my glass, my voice soft but cutting. You tried to erase me with a lie. But tonight, I'm erasing the lie with the truth. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the quiet clink of my glass as I set it down on the table beside me. The ballroom had shifted. Moments earlier, Emily was the glowing center of the evening, but now every eye pierced her, and every whisper cut deeper than champagne bubbles ever could. I could almost feel her scrambling for air beneath the weight of exposure. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one shrinking under scrutiny, she was. Emily opened her mouth to defend herself, but the words tangled in her throat. Nathan stepped back, his expression somewhere between fury and disbelief. You forged Rehab records? His voice trembled with betrayal. She stuttered. Nathan, I only did it because… No, I interrupted, lifting a hand. My voice was calm, but it sliced through the tension like glass. Don't make excuses now. You made a choice to destroy me. Tonight, you face the consequences. Emily flinched, and I almost pitied her. Almost. I turned slowly, letting my eyes sweep across the room. Our parents near the back, their faces pale, relatives pretending not to stare, old family friends wide-eyed with shock. Then I returned my gaze to Emily. You wanted to see me broken, and for a long time, I was. But I rebuilt myself. Stronger. Wiser. Independent. And now, I hold the power you tried to steal. Her lips trembled. What do you want from me? The question hung in the air. I took a slow breath. I don't want revenge. That's not who I am anymore. But if you or anyone else in this family want a place in my life moving forward, there are conditions. The room leaned in closer, hushed. First, I said firmly, there will be honesty. No more games, no more lies whispered in shadows. If you have a problem with me, you bring it to me directly. I let the silence settle before continuing. Second, accountability. You caused real damage, not just to me, but to Michael, who believed lies instead of love. You'll own what you did.
Publicly.
Tonight isn't the end of this conversation. It's the beginning of your reckoning. Emily's face flushed crimson, tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. And third, I softened my tone, though it remained unwavering. You'll focus on building yourself instead of tearing others down. Find something that gives your life meaning beyond appearances and envy. Until then, you won't have my trust. The crowd was so quiet I could hear the distant hum of the quartet's instruments still resting in the corner. I finished with a calm finality. I don't need an apology tonight. Words are cheap. What I need is change. Show me that, and maybe one day, you'll earn back my respect. Until then, consider this your warning. The silence broke with scattered murmurs. Some looked at Emily with disappointment, others at me with awe. For the first time in my life, the balance had shifted. I was no longer the younger sister living in her shadow. I was the one casting it. In the weeks that followed the engagement party, the ripple effects of that night were impossible to ignore. Nathan called off the wedding within days, returning the ring and walking away from the wreckage of lies Emily had built around herself. The lavish future she had so carefully curated crumbled in her hands like ash. My parents were quieter around me, their once dismissive tone replaced by something heavier, guilt, perhaps, or shame. For the first time, they looked at me not as the fragile daughter who almost ruined the family name, but as the woman who had carried herself with dignity even when they turned their backs. Emily, on the other hand, disappeared from the spotlight. No social media posts, no glittering events. A silence from her that felt almost foreign. Part of me hoped she was reflecting. Another part knew her pride wouldn't let her change overnight. But still, I left the door cracked, just as I'd promised. As for me, life didn't suddenly become perfect, but it did feel lighter. I no longer carried the weight of a lie pressing against my chest. I walked into my office each morning with my head high, greeted by the team I had built, the walls lined with evidence of battles I had won on my own terms. One evening, I sat at my desk long after everyone else had left, the city skyline glowing outside the window. My fingers brushed against the silver locket at my neck, the one my grandmother had pressed into my palm when I thought I had nothing left. Her words echoed in my mind. Strength doesn't come from what others give you. It comes from what they can't take away. I closed my eyes, letting the truth of that sink in. Emily had taken so much from me once. My engagement, my peace, my reputation, but she hadn't taken my strength. That had carried me through the darkest nights and led me to the woman I was now. I stood, gathering my things, and caught my reflection in the glass. This time, I didn't see the broken version of myself, or even the triumphant avenger from the party. I saw balance.
Grace. Power.
And with a small, steady smile, I whispered the truth I knew would carry me forward. They tried to bury me in lies. But I grew into something they could never uproot.